Hey Auntie Melissa, I'm making this video for you so you can learn how to use a sous vide cooker. So I'm going to make a sous vide pork tenderloin. So here we go. Okay, I'm going to start out by making the rub. So this is 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of paprika, doesn't have to be exact, just close, and a tablespoon of garlic salt. And some fresh ground pepper. Just gonna mix that around. Break up all the chunks of brown sugar. So I've got my pork tenderloin here and I've dried it off. And I'm going to apply this liberally to both sides. So the trick to sous vide is that you vacuum seal the meat into a bag, and then you cook at a constant temperature for at least enough time for it to come up to the temperature, but more like several hours. You want to cook it for longer so that it'll break down the fibers of the meat. It'll never get higher temperature than whatever temperature you set the cooker to. So I'm just gonna get a bag going for this. Doesn't need to be big, it just needs to fit the pork roast in there. And then I like to fold it like this so you don't get any liquid on where it's going to be sealed. And I'm going to put the pork roast in here. This pork roast is not even fully defrosted, doesn't matter. And I'm going to seal this. I leave it on the dry setting because there's really no liquid in there. And we're done. Nice seal on both sides. Okay, so this is the sous vide cooker. It's made by Anova. It's one of the more popular brands. It connects to your phone via Bluetooth, or it can connect to your Wi-Fi and then you can even change the settings when you're away from home. Has a display here, has a temperature control here, and then this is how you connect it to your pot. And it has some markings right here, a minimum and a maximum. It's hard to see, but this, you want the water line in the pot to be in between these two lines when you, after you add the meat. If you have it too low, you'll hear it gurgling in there and it'll have a hard time keeping the temperature. I've never had it too high, but I'd imagine it could damage the unit. Okay, so here's my pot. I'm going to place the ANOVA on the side here and tighten down this nut. On this particular pot, it doesn't tighten down quite all the way, but that's not a problem as long as it's not going to wiggle around during operation. And at this point, you check your water line, make sure it's full enough. As you can see, my water line's a little low, so I'm going to add some water. Okay, I've increased the water level, and now it's time to plug in the ANOVA. And the unit is going to come on and show you the current temperature, the temperature it's set to, and if you didn't want to connect this to your phone, you could simply push this red button right here and it would connect. I'm sorry, it would start cooking. It would raise the water temperature slowly to the 145, and then it would keep it there until you hit that button again or unplug the unit. I like to have it connected to my phone so I can see at all times that it's going and I can see what the temperature is, and if I leave the house and forget to shut it off, I could do that or change the temperature. As you can see, it's got a little flashing symbol here. That means it's connected to my Wi-Fi. And I'll show you a screenshot of what the app looks like. Okay, so this is the ANOVA app homepage. As you can see, we have connection information up at the top. It's currently connected to my ANOVA, and it shows you the current temperature, the target temperature, and if it was cooking, how much time it has left. And then you have a bunch of recipes, so you can actually just click a recipe and say cook, and it'll set and start your ANOVA for you. But I want to set and start the ANOVA manually, so I am going to click the cook button in the bottom center. It shows me the current temperature at the top and then the set temperature on the left. So that's already set to 145, so I'm going to leave that there. And then I'm going to set the timer by clicking set timer on the right. I'm going to set it to 5 hours and click start. So as you can see, the ANOVA has started. It's set to 145. It's currently at 81 degrees. And I am going to go ahead and add the meat. Now the whole premise is that the ANOVA keeps it at a certain temperature and circulates the water. So the temperature being at a specific level, the meat will cook to that temperature no matter how long you cook it. But the longer you cook it, it'll break down the fibers and all the connective tissue in the meat, so it'll make it nice and tender. One thing to think about is that if you have a really fatty cut, it will not render the fat like normal cooking methods will. So I cooked a ribeye in here one time and it wasn't very good because all the fat was still intact. So I have this on the stove, and the reason I do that is one, so I don't worry about damaging the countertops, but also I can turn the stove on to help it get up to the temperature quicker. So I put the stove on high and I monitor the temperature, and it'll get to its cooking temperature of 145 degrees much faster that way. Okay, so we're about to come to temperature here. And as soon as it reaches temperature, it starts the timer. So now the 5-hour timer will start. So quick note, I forgot it was on the heat, so the temperature quickly went up past the 145 to now it's at 147. So I've removed it from the stove, and the ANOVA will allow the heat to come back down to the 145 that it's supposed to be at. So just be careful if you use my method of heating the water quicker. You got to remember to take it off the heat when you're done. Okay, the time is up. Okay, I have a saute pan on the stove, nice and hot. I'm just gonna add some oil. Get that to a high temperature. If you have cast iron, I would suggest using cast iron to sear meat. So now we will open up the bag. Probably better with scissors. And there's a lot of juices in there, so I'm going to be really careful. And we're going to put it in the saute pan. So sometimes I slice the pork up into slices and sear, but this time I've decided I'm just going to leave it whole and sear it, and then I'll slice it afterwards. So after a good minute, I'm going to flip it over. A little bit more than I'd like, but that's okay. So after you get a nice sear, you're going to remove it from the heat. And I like to just let it rest on the cutting board for a couple minutes. So after you let it rest, you can go ahead and cut it. And I like to cut it at a little bit of an angle. Makes it look a little nicer. Maybe half an inch or a little bit more slices. There you go. Enjoy.